This week at Morning Glory Motorsports, we try and get this thing off the table. This is a 2008 Ford Mustang GT500. If you can't tell, it's been a little bit modified. I was given the task to lighten it up a little bit. Let me show you what I've done so far. So I've cut the entire stock firewall out of it. This was done previously by somebody else. We're changing that too. This has been a race car for the majority of its life. I'll insert some pictures from before it came in of what it was. This has been cut out. It's gonna be able to use a stock K-member still, toe bolt in and out. Move into the interior. I built this entire floor structure. Put some FFP pedals in. This bar right here is called a double frame rail. And we run that from the mid-plate bar to the back, and it just strengthens it up. And then on the other side, like down in here, I'll put steel, little pieces of steel to, you know, maybe save the driver's feet if anything explodes. Now, speaking of if anything explodes, this guy told me that probably 8 or so years ago, he had a transmission explode in this car. Let me show you the destruction. So it was a similar transmission to this, different case, and I'll show you a picture of it. But it exploded on the dyno and did all this. Went up through the windshield, broke the windshield. Now it has optic armor. Now, of course, we don't want that to happen again, so we have to prepare for the worst if it does happen again. We're gonna add some bars here, some more supports, which you'll see in the coming clips. And there will be more sheet metal as I talk about. This will be plated over. Again, just in case. We are on to more of the double frame rail. I got some supports tacked in. So now we're gonna run here to here, and here to in here. So let's get that going. And here's a quick shot of the double frame rail supports all tacked in with no transmission in there. Well, here. Drop. Good girl. Oh, something else caught our attention. This is the Hammer Concept, more budget-friendly 4-link kit. You can see these are 3 pieces. They stack up to give you this. And then there's like a little ledge there to lay weld in these windows. These are the upper and lower brackets that bolt like that. And your heim joint goes in here. Now, these look the same, but they are not the same. They'll bolt in the same place, but they're not the same. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to clean these up. I clean the surfaces up, top and bottom, before I weld them. I do the edges also, even though these are laser cut. It kind of leaves a residue. You don't have to do any of this, but this is just what I do. So let me get these cleaned up, welded together. Now I realize I'm jumping around here, guys. Still new at this. It'll get better with time. If you guys have any questions or want to see anything specific, drop a comment, let me know. I'll try and include it in the next video or try and explain it in a comment. Well, the time has come to mount these bad boys. But that doesn't come without issues. But here's the biggest issue. These come in 2 sizes, 13 and 15 inch. This one's the 13-inch economy. Sometimes you don't have 13 inches to play with. So I'm gotta make this fit. I've done it before, just more work for me. This is a little subframe I had to build. Now, when you're retrofitting stuff into, like, this portion was already here. The main cage structure stuff was already here. So I put this in. All the stuff in the floor I put in. So to get the appropriate bar length, what we're after, I have to build this structure off the back. One thing I also didn't mention is this bar is not flat. And that's because, again, when you fit to something that's already here, these were on a stock floor, which is well above the rocker. And this, we want this as low as possible for the drive shaft on these radial cars. So to make this dip, that means when I mount the 4-link, it would look like this, and we want it to be like that. So it's back to the cutting bench. We'll get it all marked out. I have an 1 5/8 tube here. We'll make some big cuts, then we'll knock the big piece out, and then we'll do a little grinding, try and get down to the mark. Then we'll check the fit up real quick to an 1 5/8 tube. Hit it quick again, check it once more, and then we're back to the car. So we have it fitted up pretty good. Now, let's go do it again. Common theme here, huh? And there they are. Put in. I guess we'll get them tacked in. So these bars I'm fitting here will go at the end of the transmission tunnel, and they'll sort of act as a drive shaft loop in a sense. I offset notch them because they are 1 inch and they're going in between 1 and 5/8. So you offset notch them so they sit flat against the back, so I can do sheet metal easier. Whenever you see it in a later video when I'm doing the sheet metal, it'll make more sense. So the next thing I want to do is to put this Hammer Concepts and Designs floater 4-link housing under the car. I'd like to measure for a couple things. 4-link bars, wishbone, that's what holds the rear end straight in the car, keeps it from going side to side. Anti-roll bar, which is just how it sounds, stops the car from rolling during a launch. And the coilover mounts. Wow. So somehow we got that in the center. First try. No idea how. Now also while we're here, we can measure for a shock mount. Now I don't know what stroke shock these are. These are Menser 4-way adjustables. So there's 2 ways to tell what stroke shock these are. You can measure it right now, eyelet to eyelet, and then go on Menser's website and see the extended length, and then you can see the collapsed length and get your stroke from there. Or you can take these springs off and collapse it and measure it. I could tell you which one's easier, but I'll show you how to take them off. Now there is a lock nut on this collar, this adjustable collar here, and this ride height is changing anyway, so I don't mind doing this. All right, then there's this little clip on the top. You got to push down, pull the spring down with it, pop it out. Now you may have noticed that I pulled 2 springs off here. And that's called dual rate, progressive rate, variable rate, a couple different names for it. It's done for 2 reasons here, I think. One, it takes the gap up for the shock, so you can see like the whole, when the shock's all the way extended, and a 12-inch spring is too short, and these cars extend, so you don't want that spring flopping around. The other reason is when you take 2 spring rates and add them together, they become softer than what it actually is. And let me show you an example of that.
Here's the formula to allow you to do your own math at home. So to create or find out what the spring rate is, the combined upper and lower spring, you take the top spring times the bottom spring. These are rates. So top spring, I'm going to show you an example of, say, 200-pound spring. So 200-pound upper times the bottom, 200-pound lower, divided by the upper plus the lower. All right?
So our example here is we have a 100-pound top spring. And we have a 80-pound bottom spring. Divide those by 100 plus 80. Oh, not 800. And you get 8,000 divided by 180. 44 pound. 44 repeating pound spring. That means it takes 44.4 pounds to compress these with this divider 1 inch instead of 100 pounds for this one and 80 pounds for this one. So on a radial car anyway, we kind of want the lightest spring possible. It's just to hold the car up and get that 1 inch of shaft showing on the coilover. Back to you, Eric. Yeah, thanks for the math problem, man. Anyway, after all that sidetrack, let me get 13. $20. So 13, or 20 minus 13 is? Yeah, you get it. So we've taken all our measurements for the rear. We can pop that out. Next thing, engine and transmission have to come out. Now, I have a suspicion that this will not come out of here without me cutting the crossmember because of my jig legs here. Can't move it back far enough. The way I got it in was I moved it to the side and it went down diagonal. Well, the double frame rail's in there now, so it will not go down diagonally. So we'll have to cut it. And that is, it's not an oversight. It was gonna get cut anyway. I put in, this is for the crossmember. I designed these and made these like a side-by-side. They come apart, and it's the size of the tube, a couple 3/8 bolts. But anyway, we'll try. If not, we'll cut it. And there we go. And with the engine out, we can get the struts out of the stock strut towers. They're going to get replaced with what I'm about to show you. So here is the hammer strut cup kit. Just a short and sweet assembly diagram. It comes with a couple sockets. Last time I did this, these were not in there. So I assume a bunch of people complained about not being able to get down in here and tighten the strut. I asked the same thing. I think I got like some of the first ones the last time I did this, and it looks like they've developed something to be able, looks like this socket will go down inside that one to hold top of the strut and then the big nut. So I guess I was right. That goes in, and you'll hold this with a wrench. Now that that mystery's solved, let's get to cutting. Ta-da! Now, as you can see, I've cut off quite a vital part that's needed for the suspension to work. So we're gonna be putting it back today, as well as touching up a little other things. A couple other things need welded in here while the engine's out. So yeah, let's get to it. So I have to grind the old stuff off, and where these front frame rails came together, there used to be a bunch of pinch welds in a straight up weld seam, and I cut that off. So now I have to weld these seams back up. And as I was setting up the front strut in the jig, I noticed something that might be an issue. So I grabbed the front clip, had my dad come down, help me put it on, so I could check some clearances. As we can kind of see here, you get a good light. The strut cup is about to touch the front, but we do end up having clearance, so that's good news. Now my dad and I can take this front clip back off, and I can continue on. Fitting the first bar up, probably the most critical. It's going to hold you in place for all the rest of them. And there we have one strut tower, for sure. Now, I'm sure I sound like a broken record, but I just have to do it again, and this is just gonna be about impossible. So, we'll get it. And there we are. 2 strut towers. They just need finish welded, which I'll do when we pull it off the table. Now, if you remember from the last video, me struggling to put this rear end in this car, we took a couple measurements while it was in here. So that leads us to the 4-link bar. So this car has a cool 4-link bar kit. Let me show you. This is titanium from our friends at MFD Race. And we're going for 21.5, and you can see here we have 26. So we got to shorten them. Then we'll do a little welding on titanium. So generally when I set these up, I'll leave a little bit of thread showing here, and there should be a jam nut in here. I don't have them, custom. So the jam nut's about 1/4 inch, and then I have about 3/8 of an inch of thread sticking out on each end. That way you can shorten it or lengthen it and still have appropriate thread engagement. So let's get these cut down and we'll start welding. And there we have 21.5 inch bar. Now let's cut the rest and we can get set up to weld. I've got these all tacked up. Now I'm going to back purge these. And what that means is I'm going to take gas from another tank and put it on the back side of this weld, as well as I'm going to switch to this bigger cup and put tons of gas on the outside. I'm gonna crank my CFM up. There's one, just need the plug welds, but I let this cool down quite a bit. So, weld the rest out. There's some titanium 4-link bars. So next on the agenda is a wishbone. And I made this jig today. So should hold it straight and true. These are slotted, so I can do a maximum width of, I think it was 23. And then this is slotted too. And right now it's at 23. But you can move this slider if you need like a different length. So like if you move it an inch this way, you get an extra inch this way, if you know what I mean. I got a piece fitted up. On to the next one. So I went ahead and test fit the wishbone into the car, and I am happy with it. So I'm starting on the X-brace to strengthen it up. Once the X-brace is tacked together, we remove everything for final welding. So I put the wishbone all back together and I have the mounts tacked in the car, but I'm noticing something. I'm noticing something that we better check before we weld anything in permanently. So I've got the wishbone sitting in here with some mounts, and we have a bit of a problem. I have this in here to simulate what's called a pro jack. You see these little half circles right here? So we use jacks under these race cars called a pro jack, and it spans from 4-link bracket to 4-link bracket just like that, lifts the car up in the pits. And I need this wishbone to not interfere with that, which kind of kicks the mounts up. And then it's gonna limit my travel of the wishbone down. So I'm gonna have to tack those and cycle it to make sure it does not bind at full droop. So now I'm gonna take the jack stands out and lower the suspension to simulate separation from a radial tire car, which this is. Yeah. Let's go. That sounds good, so maybe crisis averted. So, right there's 8 inches of travel, and our shocks only have 6. So there's room for him to go to a bigger shock if he wants to. And we have tons of slip yet in our wishbone slip, which is great. No bottoming out, and when it's all the way up, this is still flush with that in that bushing. Perfect. Now let's focus our attention on the anti-roll bar. This is another Hammer Concepts and Designs part. It's beautiful, it's artwork. Jewelry for men, we'll say. So I've already got it 20 inches center to center. And that is because we will be using the mount that's included into the 4-link bracket itself. So our link's gonna land in one of these holes, and they are, if you remember, 20 inches apart. Also, we got the shock we're gonna set up too. We can kind of do it all at one swipe here. So here I am getting the shocks positioned. I you can see that the anti-roll bar's in. I apparently did not take a video of that, I guess. But anyway, we'll get both these shocks tacked in, and we can move on to the anti-roll bar links that go down to the rear end. We've got shocks, we've got an anti-roll bar, but we need links to go from the anti-roll bar to the rear end. So when I do this, I point this up 15 degrees. I don't know, something like this. And the reason for that is when a radial car goes down the track and extends, this starts to come down as the rear extends. And now this will be at its strongest point, hopefully, when the rear's fully extended. Here are the anti-roll bar links. We'll get them cut and tacked up, mocked up in there. Well, next step is to cycle this whole suspension, run it through its range of motion while it's all tacked. That way, if it doesn't work right, you can pull it back off without cutting a solid weld. We'll run it through that, see if it all works the way it should. And then we'll finish weld everything and add some supports and all that. All the way down. I think it's all good, guys. Well, I'm happy with that. So let's get this rear pulled out and get everything welded up. All right, I think we're happy with the rear suspension, so let's weld it on. Once we've got this all welded up, it's time to move to what I have been dreading, and that is the firewall. It has to be the least favorite thing out of all of this, but still needs to be done. So let's do a little CAD, cardboard aided drafting. Now while I'm doing that, my dad's in the back making templates for the rear shelf, which we end up not even using. Once I'm happy with the fitment of the template, I'm going to transfer it to this piece of sheet metal, which is 22 gauge cold rolled steel. I'll then grab the cutoff wheel, cut it out. Now that it's cut out, we'll fit it up here. Then we'll mark out a pattern for bead rolling, which strengthens the material up. Kind of makes it look cool. At least in my opinion. Now to just bead roll. So we have a firewall somewhat in. The bottom portion to here, to the tube, requires a little different strategy because this is super thin and this is thick. So you use what's called, let's see if I can get that. Silicon bronze, it's called. It kind of just bonds the two together. It's like brazing a little bit, but you take, well, I'll show you. It is somewhat like you're just welding, but you want to do it at a much lower amperage, and it almost just like flows in. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain unless you just jump in and do it. Now, in order to fit the next piece of the firewall, I actually have to do a little bit of the floor first. So here I am, welding in a piece of the floor. My dad gets this all cleaned up, ready for the next piece of the floor. And we have our next piece of the firewall. I didn't film, I don't think, any of this, maybe. Sheet metal is my least favorite part. I don't feel like I'm that great at it, so I'm always learning, and I get frustrated easily with it, but let's get this cleaned up, tacked in. You know, for not liking it, I think it's turning out pretty cool, actually. We are going to be using the silicon bronze here again, sheet metal too. Just take your time. You don't want to burn through it. Notice I put some bars in here. There. A little thunder today. I waited to get the this piece in. Before I did that, I wanted to see where it was going to land before I put them bars in. And they were a struggle to put in. It was tough. I knew it was going to be tough though, so we got them in. So I did not show you guys this part where I made these two pieces for the start of the floor where it meets the firewall. But I need to do it on this side, and I have the template from the other side. So we'll put it up in there, so hopefully it fits, and cut it out. We got both 4 pieces in. Now we're gonna try for the last piece of the firewall, and we have the old template. We'll see how it fits. And I guess since I didn't show you any of the other side, here's my dad making the template for the driver's side. He used the old template, just flipped it over. It should be the same-ish, close enough. And there we go, guys. Last piece of the firewall. Let's get it cleaned up, tacked in. Also did the driver floor while I was at it, but we'll put that in next week. Back to welding with the silicon bronze. I kind of do it the opposite of the other panel. It looks cool. Maybe there's a reason for it. I don't know. Introduces heat in a different part of the bar. Well, let's say that, yeah. Gonna finish up most of the silicon bronze while I'm here, so I don't have to get in here and do it again. And there we have mostly finished firewall. Just have to finish welding and then seam seal and paint and drill a whole bunch of holes. So we'll ruin it anyway, but I think it turned out pretty good for me hating sheet metal. I still hate sheet metal. Now, not all sheets of carbon fiber are equal, we'll say. I'll try and explain this how it was explained to me. This is a piece that is fiberglass backed. So they take a sheet of carbon, lay it down on a flat piece of, he uses glass, and then they'll lay a piece of fiberglass on it, and then they'll dump resin on it and like roll it out. And then they'll put it like in a big vacuum bag and like try and suck the air out. So that's one way to do it. And fiberglass is heavier than carbon fiber, but it bends. This stuff does not. The next way to do it is to, same way, lay the carbon down, then lay another piece of carbon on it. So you have carbon, they put the resin on it, roll it out, put it in a bag, vacuum it. Extremely strong, doesn't bend quite as much as this, still bends a little bit. The next way to do it is the way this is done. It's infused. So they'll take carbon, put it in a bag with no resin, and then put a vacuum on one side and resin on the other and just draw resin through it. So this only has as much resin as it needs. Whereas when you roll it out, there's excess resin. So this is the lightest and strongest option as far as carbon fiber, but it is also the most expensive. I'll put a little video up here. Hopefully they get me one to show you. This is full throttle signs. Again, full throttle composites. I don't know what he calls himself anymore, but this is a friend of mine. Does beautiful work. They do mostly OBS Chevy parts, so go check them out if you have an OBS Chevy, or if you need flat stuff. We've made a bed cover with this. I've used their parts before on an OBS Chevy, and this stuff is unbelievably nice. Now that the firewall is finished up, let's move to the back. Start getting ribbon strips in here. These things. Oh, there they are. Remember, they were to hold the carbon. We use rivets, and this makes the entire bottom of the car flat. So we got to put some in here, across here, as a rear bulkhead, and then carbon here, and it'll close everything off to the cabin. This is just a kitchen magnet to hang like knives or something off your cabinets. If you try and weld close to a magnet, it pushes the arc away. So you may see me get mad here. Who knows? We'll see. Sometimes welding near a magnet can really get to you. So I mentioned in the last video, we ended up not even using these pieces my dad was making. We made them out of steel and could not get them in here. So now we're gonna make them out of carbon. Once he's happy with his template, cuts it out of the carbon, starts fitting it. And yes, this will have a hole in it for the drive shaft to pass through, just not yet. Now moving on to the ribbon strips on the floor. The passenger side and the middle of this will be made out of carbon fiber, and in the last video I showed that the driver's side is made out of steel. And there we have all the ribbon strips in the driver area. I can tell you, it's much easier if you just do this from the beginning like this. So my dad will get the steel floor fitted up. It's required to have steel or aluminum under the driver. As far as I know, I don't think carbon can be. But before we can weld that in, I want to get some new harness tabs welded to the chassis. These are double shear. I like to use double shear for the waist strap. Now, because I've moved the driver back so much further than it used to be, this harness tab for the shoulder belts is not going to work anymore. So let me get this cut off and cleaned up and ready for the new one. So I'm going to reuse the existing seat bracket. He likes the seat. It's a very light setup with the carbon piece. So let's get that fitted in here, tacked in. And then we'll start fitting some legs to it down to the floor structure, and we'll get it welded in. Of course, we got to test it out, make sure we like it, you know, just in case I ever have to drive. Well, I think we have a good position for the seat here. So I guess let's continue welding it in, make some more feet for it. And with the seat bracket all finished up, let's weld in the metal floor underneath the driver here. We're going to rivet it in first, and then let's move to the silicon bronze. Same stuff we used on the Firewall, but this is overhead, so it's a little harder. And while I'm doing that, my dad is starting his template to do the passenger side in the carbon fiber. Now with me being finished up welding, I am going to move on to trying to fit these carbon wheel tubs. So part of the floor is wheel tubs. We have some carbon fiber wheel tubs. This can be an extremely daunting task, I can tell you. Especially if you're using carbon fiber. If you cut a little bit too much, well, you can't weld it back on. Basically, take your time, is all I can say. Small cuts, small cuts. Now, admittedly, I'm cheating a little bit. Let me show you. So I have the original wheel tubs that came out of this, so I have the fender profile already. You could call it cheating. I'm just being resourceful. I'm just trying to save time. If I was to do this from the beginning, you know, you got to make a template of this gigantic tub. Unless you just want to cut carbon and try and patch it back if you get it wrong, I guess. Here are our carbon fiber wheel tubs. Rough mark here from using the old wheel tubs. As you can see, we've got one carbon fiber wheel tub fitted. So we'll clean this up a little bit more. I shoved these tubs up a little further than the other ones, so we can fit a little bigger tire if he wants. So I gotta cut that a little more, and then we'll get to trimming the carbon. I didn't take any time lapse of the fitting of the passenger side tub. It's just a lot of up and down and me wrestling with a carbon fiber tub on the ground. We'll go ahead and put the passenger side back in so I can reference it, take some measurements quick, and then again, up and down and wrestle. I am cutting these with tin snips. That's mainly what I use for the straight cuts. I guess once I'm happy with the placement of the tubs, we're going to move on to a back bumper support. And while I'm doing that, my dad is going to do the centerpiece, which is going to be in carbon fiber. He's making a template right now. And once I'm happy with this bumper bracket, I'll get it tacked in. Let me put the tub back in it so I can see if it's where I want it. Another reason I do a support like this is that is real sturdy now. I threaded this and counterbored the plastic, so this will be flush. Make a piece of carbon for here, make a piece of carbon for there. This is kind of like guess and check stuff, like, I don't know. Somewhat of science, but just go at it. So we'll just go ahead and get right into it. Grab our poster board and start making a template. I start by making a profile of the lower part of the rear quarter where the bumper bolts on. And when I'm happy with it, transfer it to carbon. Drill some holes, put some clecos in it to hold it there while I mark out for the rest of the holes. This is a double-sided ribbon strip that I can put in the brake, and then I can use it to follow the contour of the tub down to this next piece of carbon. This will just hold the two together. This also has the same spacing as the ones that I weld onto the chassis. My dad has the two floor pieces that we need for the front part of the chassis finished in carbon, so I'm going to help him drill some holes and get it secured in so he can drill the rest of the holes. Then we'll move on to this middle back piece. He already has it made, so I'm going to climb in the chassis and drill some holes. So the next piece of the puzzle is making this very back piece of carbon that flows into the bumper. Whoever cut this bumper didn't cut it very evenly, so I'm kind of artificially making a lip for the carbon to fit into. Tying the carbon into the stock rear bumper so that air kind of just flows off it is probably the most time-consuming part of this. Just using a heat gun here. I think they're called duckbill vice grips, and some compressed air. So get it hot, bend it up, and use the compressed air to hold it in place. Now we'll move on to the back piece of carbon, but we're going to run into a little bit of an issue. So we've got a bit of an issue. I can't fit a drill in back behind here to drill through to get a cleat in. So what I do is I'll take a pick, little scribe, and we'll set this up there where we want it, then just reach in here and scribe a little hole. All right, we'll drill that. I keep talking about these cleat code things, but it takes the place of a rivet. You can take it in and out. Instead of holding that up there to scribe all of these holes, I just take this piece of ribbon strip, put it to that, and then I'll drill the holes because these are all uniform. And while I'm at it, I'm going to put some rib nuts in the carbon. So we're going to bolt the carbon to the bumper so the bumper is still removable without having to drill out a bunch of rivets. We'll get this piece put back in there, and then we'll start working on the rest of the corner. Now we're moving to this corner, the front corner. You got to try and close all this off. Try and close this off because you don't want any like rocks and debris sitting in here, because as soon as you launch, where's it go? Right on their tire. Not good. Just get this welded in. I have some ribbon strips here already. I have a piece of carbon to put over here, and then it'll be filling this. Well, unfortunately, I failed to film most of this corner. I think I filmed the other side corner. That'll be a little bit later in the video. And there we have one corner, or one side of carbon finished. It's been tedious, we'll say. Now I have patterns for this side at least to make it a little easier. Hopefully they fit. So we got to put a brake in this carbon because we're trying to do 1,000 different planes at once apparently. So I heat it up along where I want to brake it. See it kind of start to droop. Let's get it secured in here where it belongs. Now, I'm not real sure how much this needs broke, but we'll try there. We'll start there. If you cool it down right away, it holds its shape better. All right, let's try that. We're back. Need some more. All right, that's quite a bit more. Try again. Well, look at that. I don't even have anything holding it in. Maybe I'm getting the hang of it. I don't know. I'm sure I'll forget next time I do it anyway. What I've been attaching the bottom of this with are these 832 countersunk bolts. Countersink plastic, and they go up in there. You can see. So, and I'm using these rib nuts on the backside. That tape will be coming off, of course. We just have it there to help when we bend the carbon. These rib nuts can be an absolute pain if you don't hold it at the exact right angle to get it going. I don't know. Oh. Telling you, sometimes they can just be an absolute pain. But anyway, let's move on to the very last piece in this back corner. We'll heat it up a little bit, cool it down, let it conform to the bumper, and then we'll drill some holes in it to secure it to the bumper. And there's the back corner finished. So I have the front corner finished over here. I'm doing over here. I'm scrambling around trying to find clecos. I'm running out. This thing looks like a porcupine. Last piece of the carbon puzzle, and I have to steal some clecos from somewhere. I guess here, take one. I'm out of clecos. I have an exponential amount of clecos and I'm out. That's it. That's it for the carbon fiber. Job done, we'll say. Well, this part of it. Still got to take it all back out, paint, seam seal, pull all the plastic off, and then put it all back up. What a time-consuming job. So I talked about the differences in the carbon fibers. I have 4 different ones set up here. This is half carbon, half fiberglass. Laid up, like I was talking about, they just lay it down and roll the resin in. This is carbon-carbon infused. This is carbon-carbon, I think, 3 sheets of it infused. And then this is carbon-carbon, but it is laid up, rolled on, just like the fiberglass stuff. So I already went through and got a thickness of all these. This stuff is 028. The fiberglass stuff is the thickest at 060. The infused stuff is 028 also. And then triple carbon, I guess I should make an amendment here. Carbon, 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 carbon is 050. So I have a piece of cardboard that is 1 square foot, 12 inch by 12 inch. Mostly because this is all scraps and I cut them to all be 1 square foot so we can do kind of a comparison. So I got my scale, and here you can see roughly 1 square foot. .6 ounces. Now we have to convert that to pounds. So you take how many ounces divided by 16, which is how many ounces are in a pound, and that gets you pounds. So the laid up and bag stuff is 0.225 of a pound. All right. Next, we'll do the carbon fiberglass. 7.7. So we'll take 7.7, divide that by 16, we get 0.48125. Well over double the poundage. So next we'll do the triple carbon. 4.9 ounces divided by 16 is 03625. And last but not least, 3 ounces. So now we have the weights for everything converted to pounds. I took some measurements earlier underneath this car. And got this many square inches and turned it into feet. Then we can do pounds per square foot. So this does not include the tubs. I guess mostly because I think that whoever makes the tubs, they list a weight maybe, and you cut most of it away anyway. And it's too hard to figure out for what I'm doing. So we have a total of 33.31 feet in this entire car. I guess what I'm trying to show here is if you do the entire car, depending on what carbon you buy, is how much weight all of it's going to add. So the carbon that's laid up, you know, they lay it on a table, put the resin in it, then bag it and vacuum it. 0.225 times 33.31 is 7.5 pounds total. That's for the entire car. The carbon and fiberglass, 33.31 times 048, 0.48, 1225, 16 pounds. It's quite a difference, huh? Then we'll do 33.31 times 0.30, 625. That'd be 10 pounds. And then 33.31 times 1875. Now there's obviously a giant cost difference. I wouldn't say giant, but I think that half carbon, half fiberglass for a 4x8 sheet is $500, and a carbon hand laid and then bagged is $700, I think. This is just off the top of my head. And then this one, carbon infused 4x8 sheet. It's a little bigger than 4x8. Is $800. For extra $100 in this entire car, you could save 1.26 pounds. Or just take a in the morning. So I guess what I'm getting at is it worth the extra money to you? I can't answer that. To me, I also can't answer that. Because the carbon infused stuff is the strongest. I can tell you that. This doesn't need to be like that strong, I guess. It's just kind of deflecting air off the bottom of this. So that's for you to make your mind up. So before we can make it a roller, there's quite a few things that I want to get done. First, containment pans underneath engine and transmission. I make them two separate ones because when we get back to the pit, we like to take the transmission one down and put a fan on the torque converter. That's because it's probably, I don't know, the same temperature as the surface of the sun when you get back, especially on a turbo car. And they catch all the fluid when one of these blows up. Not mod motor, just all race engines blow up. Burn down tank in the rear, and we'll get all of the plumbing for it on the interior sort of wrapped up. We're gonna put a dash in it. Love dashes in race cars. And we're gonna get all the brake lines in it. I'll show you the more of the billet pedals that we installed. Man, did this turn out sick. And then I'll show you the wheels. They look great on this car. So stay tuned. One thing I forgot to mention we were doing in this video is putting that metal on the transmission tunnel. Here's my dad and I fitting the last panel. The other two are already in. I just grabbed the camera now. I wanted to get this done before the engine and transmission go back in. Once we have the transmission tunnel pieces fitted, we're going to move on to getting the engine installed. Installing an engine with motor plate and mid plate is kind of easy when you make them easy to work on. Transmission has to go back in too. So this car is a 5.4 liter mod motor. Remember, or change the brakes. We like to just torture ourselves, I guess. So the engine's back in it. These are custom front plates that I made. Mod motor stuff is super weird. Depending on what timing cover you use, depends on what sticks out from it. So this is one from a GT500. This is where the pulleys would go for the supercharger. This don't have a supercharger anymore. You got to space these out. He had like a spacer and some washers. I added this spacer because that's the crank sensor and it's a pain to change. The more space you got, the better. So we're gonna make this one solid piece. So over to the trusty lathe we go. I have some 1-inch 6061 aluminum bar stock here. Just gonna drill it out for the two bottom ones are 10 millimeter. The four top holes are 8 millimeter holes. While I'm machining these spacers up, my dad is going to get the header off. I am going to be making custom headers now. Back over to the lathe, then we'll turn it down to the right length we need, and we'll make 5 more. All right. Got all the spacers done. They look okay. I am no machinist. I took machining in high school when I was like 15 years old. And that's all I know. So just enough to be dangerous, I think. We'll get these installed. Now that is much easier than trying to hold a washer and spacers, huh? So let's go ahead and get the passenger side tightened up. put the driver's side on. Now, as I was finishing these spacers up, I was having quite an issue with my lathe. All right. It looks like what's called a rack is missing some teeth, and it moves the carriage saddle back and forth. That gear is also missing some teeth. So my dad's going to get it torn apart, and while he's doing that, I'm going to get the removable transmission crossmember finished up, or tacked together at least. Is apart. This is the culprit. Well, this is too. So some of these teeth are flat and kind of gone, probably because of this piece. I've already started to cut it to try and fix it, but some of these teeth are laid over and broken and was causing it to skip. So I'm gonna see if I can fix it, because I'm thinking that I'm not gonna be able to find parts for the old Ta Ying. I got this shaft welded up. I guess we'll try and get the teeth all filed down to see if it works. And there we go. Well, we put it back together and it wouldn't move from about here to there. Now that you can kind of see that the teeth are real ground down there, so I'll try and build them back up and shape them like I did on the other thing. We're back, baby. She's got some hard spots, but it moves. Good enough for who it's for. So we're moving on to the drive shaft loop. I already have this measured out and I welded this together. So I like to put a piece of steel all the way around this that sticks out to attach the carbon to. So let's go ahead and get the removable loop tacked in. While we're here, we'll put a shifter mount onto it also. There it is. It's not perfect, but well, I don't know if I can get it in there. Let's go this way. Oh. There we go, carbon fiber transmission tunnel, shifter mount. Next on the list is containment pans for when this thing blows up. It's definitely not an if with these kind of cars, it's a when. So I use, this is 080 aluminum, I think. So we'll get this laid out, shear it, bend it, weld it up. So this little brake is definitely not made for something this thick, this long. If it was only like this, it'd do it with ease, but we gotta do a little modification to bend it the rest of the way. Well, now we gotta play around with because this is too wide for the other side. We'll go ahead and get this last bend in it. Now let's get some tabs welded onto it. These tabs will have the Zeus fasteners built right in. If you don't know what a Zeus fastener is, it's like a quarter turn, and like I said, we like to take these pans down between rounds. While I'm doing that, my dad's getting the brake lines sorted. First we have to install the line lock. I put some rim nuts in the frame. My dad tightens it up. The Zeus tabs in. There is 7 of them for the transpan, and then it has to be bent up a little bit right here. But the main issue is because, again, the pan sticks below, and I want this to be flat and drop it down to clear this pan. And here's the transmission pan. It has the same Zeus fasteners holding it in. This has a bump down in the middle because the transmission pan sits below the frame rails. And there is a completely flat bottom. So if you've ever seen the underside of a supercar, they're completely flat. They had some really smart engineers figure this out. Anyway, that's the premise. You know, supercars are completely flat on the bottom. So this is what I call a burn down tank. It's for crankcase ventilation. We run these clear in the back, in the middle of the car. We make these big enough to hold a lot of oil. If you have a unexpected engine disassembly, sometimes you can put oil into these tanks. So we have to be able to drain. Most of the time it should just be vapor though. But this is just me showing it, and I baffle it. So let me show you how I put one together. My dad continues on with the brake lines in the back of the car. Now I'll drill the holes for the inlet tubes. I keep these below the baffle. That keeps any fluid that goes in from being on top of the baffle. And then we'll go ahead and get the box welded out. As I'm getting this welded out, my dad's doing the hard lines from the remote reservoir to the top of the master cylinder and really admiring his own work. Now it's time to mount that burn down tank in the trunk. I get a little mount made up, welded in here. And that's just as my dad is finishing up the hard lines inside. Now he's going to move on to the rear end. There's the mount. There. Now I gotta put the carbon in, drill these holes, and a hole for the drain. All mounted up. This will go in here, and you can drain it. So I got the burn down tank in. Now there's a hole there. And if you remember me saying we're going to use the top double frame rail to get all that back here. So I welded a bead on that. To be able to capture the hose. I'm going to clean it up on the lathe. Cut this big hole, and I don't really want any of the shavings down in there. now is I'm getting all these tubes welded in. My dad's working on the rear end brake lines. One last thing before we put the rear in this. So I've got the wheels and tires here. These are Billet Specialty Comp 5 15 by 13 with a 2-inch backspace. Look at that. We have a 275 on this wheel. And we are going to get a 15 by 14 for the 295 LDR tire. So to fit the wheels, all we got to do is put all of this stuff back in there, including that. So this go around, we are going to put the center section in so I can measure for a drive shaft. I've really worked myself into a lather here. So we're on to installing the spindles in the brakes. This is called a floater hub. And the idea, if you've put together the front end of like a Mustang or any older car, they have a spindle, which this is the spindle, and they have a hub that goes over it with the inner and outer bearing. I'll show you how to put this together. They send you all the tools to do it because the end piece is like a weird socket. Idea behind this is all this load from the tire gets distributed through the two bearings in this spindle rather than an axle shaft, and on the end of it, it could flex possibly. Trucks all have these, so they take a lot of power. So I've got everything that the kit comes with laid out here. These are carbon fiber. So these are carbon brakes. This is carbon fiber. And the brake pads are also what seem to be carbon fiber. So I put gloves on. I don't know if you need to handle them with gloves. Doesn't hurt, whatever. Here's that special tool I was talking about. And bearings and such. I left the other ones inside this because I've already mocked these up. So let's get these on. I know that the customer, I'm sure, is as excited as I am to see these wheels on this thing. So another big benefit of a floater is this cap goes on here with 3 Allen bolts. But if you want to change the center section, normally on a regular, 9-inch, you have to pull the brakes, gotta pull a wheel, gotta pull all that to get the axle shaft out to be able to pull the center section. So instead of undoing all that with the regular 9-inch axle, for this, all you gotta do is undo this cap. There's an axle shaft. Okay, and you just pull it out. You leave tire, brakes, everything still connected. Now you're ready to swap a center section. And here we go. Moment of truth. I don't know if it's gonna hit that light or not. I think we are looking good. Grab too many spacers. Oh, my extension's not long enough. Oh yeah. Tons of room in here. That looks sick. So, I mean, I'll know when I'll set it down, but I'm gonna do the other side the same, except for the brakes. I know they work now, so we'll get the other side on, get the front on, and set it down and see how it looks. If you remember from the last video, my dad took the old headers off. So that brings us to the headers and the turbo kit. The old headers used to end here. And remember, I moved the engine back about 5 inches. So I got to move this flange back to somewhere in here to hold the collector for the headers. A lot of playing in here, I guess. Trial and error, guess and check. Hopefully the other side's a little easier. I always say that and it ends up being harder, but. So with the stock frame rail in the way, we have one primary fitted up. We're gonna get the second one fitted up. The issue on this side I'm facing is the oil pump and the fuel pump. They're both connected. And there we have second tube. Got clearance. Hopefully there's just enough for the last 2 tubes, huh? There is just enough clearance in here to get the last 2. So we'll get the third primary tacked up. We'll look at doing the fourth one in the car, but it might be easier to just do it on the bench. Yeah, just as I thought. Let's go ahead and pull this off here and get it mounted up on my aluminum heatsink. Yeah, I'd say this is a little easier. As long as you know you're not going to have any clearance issues, it's way easier to do it outside the car. There is one mocked up. It is extremely tight in there. So now I just gotta pull it off, tear it apart to weld all the individual tubes and hope nothing moved. So it's time to weld it out. This is a piece of like 2.5 inch thick 6061 aluminum. You can buy these right off eBay. They're drops, like scrap pieces from aluminum manufacturing places, I think. I don't know, but it was like $50 for that big chunk. Most of it was shipping. I have mod motor pattern on this side because I've done quite a few of them. And then this side I have like, I think I have big block Chevy on there, big block Ford now. Hemi, who knows what else. So the way I do this is I will the last runner to go in, which is the longest one, I'll cut it out, weld it, put it back in, tack it. This is because we don't want this to move. Sometimes you have to do 2 at a time if they don't come out. Like, I'll probably have to do these 2 together, because it don't look like this one will come out. by itself, but you don't know until you try. So biggest thing is we don't want this to move because we kind of have it where we want it. So I'm gonna put actually a couple more tacks around this so don't move, and then we'll start taking it back apart. There is one complete header, EGTs and all. Now I did not film this and inner diamond. I'll try and remember to do the next one because I still got one more to do, you know. Well, let's just repeat that process for the other side. Headers complete, hot side tied in with the new headers because it was moved back 5 inches. Now I have to do the cold side. I rotated this up a little more because I didn't like how far down it was. So move on to the aluminum. So I like to cut it down because I hate that big extra piece that sticks off of these. I'll show you what it looks like on up here, maybe. I'll take a picture of one that most people use. They're for 4.5, and we only use 4-inch. So I just hate how much bigger it is than the pipe. So I machine them down, and I'm reusing it, so I make it flat and clean it. That is the V-band flange off the turbo, and I'm cleaning up the one off the throttle body here. So I have the flanges cleaned up, so I have a starting point and an ending point. Just got to get between the two. So I already put the front end on and rotated this turbo with a 90 on it to see where I wanted it to sit. So I know I don't have any clearance issues. All right, point A to point B. Should be simple enough, right? I'll grab a couple bends. Once I'm happy with the bend, I'll take it to my positioner so I can get a nice, consistent weld on it. I'm reusing the piece of tube from his original kits so I can keep the blow-off valve flange. Trying to figure out what we need between these two, and there we have everything adapted now. So I'm just gonna pull it all out now, I guess. Ever see a lab afraid of water? Here's one. So I was hoping that this would be like the last of it until you saw it rolling, but I gotta change this. Customer doesn't like it. I really didn't want to do it, but now I am. It overhangs a little bit. So let me maybe explain a little bit. didn't want to do it because I just feel like I didn't have the time. That may become more apparent in maybe the next video. I called in a little reinforcement, had my buddy Bo come over. He's better at sheet metal than I am. And while he's doing this, I can be doing a laundry list of other little things that need done. Well, would you look at that? A new cowl panel. This might be the last you see the car until it is completely put together. I'm not real sure. Like I said, it's a thrash right now to get this. I would like to get this put together and out of here. So I'll probably just be... So we've had a little change of plans. You can see that there's no turbos in here anymore. That's because we're gonna try and put both of these in there. I guess. So to set these turbos up, I was told to play around with the weight bias. So we're gonna stick them clear out front, push them back as far as we can and see how it changes the weight. So I'm gonna throw some additional weight up here to simulate like the front end, fuel, oil. There's no fluids in this. And probably sit in it to simulate a driver, and we'll get sort of accurate weight bias. And there we have the weight bias with nothing in it right now. Well, there you go. An average sized driver, yep. Changed the bias, 54.8. So we lost 1.1% off the nose, which is pretty good. So I guess let's start moving the turbos back and forth and see how that would change it. So this has moved 6 inches back from where I just had it, and that just moved the bias 0.2% towards the back, I think it was. Realistically, this is as far back as I would want to go. Be able to mount these things and be able to run tubing to them. Just gets kind of mucked up in here if the further back you go. So I've got one turbo mounted. Now I just gotta do it again. Start getting this situated where you think you can get everything mounted. Grab my protractor, set some visual stuff up, and let's make these babies look symmetrical. After we like it, let's get a couple tacks on it and just make sure we still like it. Then we'll just have a short little piece of tube from the header to the turbine housing. And another short little piece on the driver's side. Then we'll use the positioner to weld everything up. Now you absolutely do not need a positioner for this. I actually don't use it much if you can't tell. Now let's make our short little wastegate stub off. Here's a little wastegate stub. Not much room here, but this should work. Get it welded on, as well as a little wastegate brace. The idea with the brace is it spreads load out further. The wastegate hanging off the end of this gets heavy when these tubes start to get hot. And that will bring us to the cold side. This is dual 3-inch, single 4-inch, and I like to weld this in place as much as possible. Once we're happy with the driver's side, let's move on to the passenger side. Again, I like to weld it in place as much as possible. And we're going to check for a blow-off valve placement here quick too. Now it's over to the bench and weld it the rest of the way up. And there we have twin turbos. All that's left is the exhaust, which I got me another thing from MFD Race, a little bit of titanium. So I've got a bunch of titanium here from MFD Race. This is the flange off the turbo, but it goes up to 5 inch. That's all they have. So I have to turn this down to 4 inch because that's what size I'm using. So I have the flange, and then I have a reducer that goes from 4.5 to 4, because this flange will only get down to 4.5. So I've never machined titanium. There we go. Let's talk pie cuts. They're not for everybody. Sometimes they're necessary. I've had to do them when the turbo's like right against the firewall. They're definitely more time consuming. Obviously a mandrel, you just weld on each end, but mandrels are much more expensive. But, you know, if your time is worthless, then maybe this is the option for you. Just showing you what kind of clearance we have here. So let's tack some pie together. We'll pop the front end on, check and see what kind of angle we want for the bull horns. Get it tacked on, check for turning clearance. Yeah, I think I like that. My dad's on the inside doing the fire suppression lines. As you know, this car only had one exhaust because of the single turbo. So we're gonna cut the other side of the bumper. Then you know the deal here. Do it again. And there is twin turbo dual exhaust. Now I just have to pull it off, back purge it, weld it up. So we've got it flowing. I got the big cup on. Now when I weld pie cuts, I jump around a lot. If you don't, they deform very quickly. I've got a big Furic 18 cup on, and I'm flowing a lot of gas. Gotta keep titanium cool. So next we have the O2 sensor. So it's saddled. It was for a 3-inch tube. You just saw me shave it down so it fits better on a 4-inch tube. It's just how they come. Drill a big old hole so that indentation fits down in it. So these are saddled to spread the load out because titanium is so thin, you want more surface area to weld so it doesn't break off. I have just an old O2 sensor for the plug for the O2, and it helps it as a heat sink. One of the last things we have to do here is we have to put cross bolts in for when a turbo explodes. Maybe, whatever. And if it comes off of the shaft, hopefully gets stuck by these cross bolts. A lot of Pro Mod turbos have them built right into the back of the housing, but these don't, so we gotta put some in it. Some 1/2-inch titanium rod and some plates to, again, spread the load. It's all right. There is one side finished. Now this part, I'm gonna clean this again with acetone because if you leave any fingerprints the first time this goes down the track, I think it'll leave them when it gets hot. 2 fully welded downpipes. Now it's time to place a fuel cell somewhere in here. I'll measure for a custom one, see what we can get to fit. We're looking for around 5 gallon, maybe a little less is fine too. So I've already done a little CAD again and got us a box that I kind of like to fit up in there. Now, how I go about figuring out how many gallons this is I'll just lay it out, rectangle, rectangle, triangle. Add them all up, take them the distance here, and now you have cubic inches, and you'll convert it to gallons. We've got our odd shape, and we want to try and find how many galloons it'll be. So we have 7 3/4 by 9 inch. We got 4 1/4 by 6 inch. And then our triangle should be 3 by 4. 7 3/4 by 9 is 69. 4 1/4 by 6, 25.5. 3 by, well, that would work too. 3 by 4 divided by 2 is 6. Add them all up. This panel is 101.25 square inches. Now volume needs cubic inches. So you can take all these, and it's just like an extrusion, 12 inches long. So take 101.25 times 12, because that's about how long I want to make this. And you get 15 cubic inches. And I think you divide that by 231 to get gallons. You get 5.25 gallon, roughly. Anyway, that's how I figured it out. Break it down into 3 shapes that you know how to do the area in. That may not be any, I don't know. You can Google. So I guess we'll do some real CAD this time. Head over to the plasma, get it cut out. Get it bent up, we'll get it welded together. You can see I have a sump cut into this one. After we get it all welded together, we'll weld some bungs onto it and mount it. But I failed to record all that. Maybe I'll leave that cover on it. Won't get scratched that way, huh? Okay, so now's probably gonna be the last you see of it till it's together. I'm serious this time. It's got twin turbos, it's got a new fuel cell, a couple little things I have to take care of. Paint again. I guess next you're gonna see this thing, it's gonna be ready to go home. So we did a lot of work here to the front. Struts, cowl, titanium exhaust, giant turbos, fuel cell in the front with titanium also. There's a lot of stuff that you don't see or didn't see maybe. You know, all these fire lines that my dad did. Fuel pressure regulator mounted, cut. Frame rails are cut a little bit. Headers, you saw them. But yeah, a lot of work here. A lot of planning goes into it. the inside. A lot of stuff happened here too that you didn't see. You can see all the fire lines, the brake lines I showed you. We cut the dash and pulled the whole dash out by leaving the Holley stuff in it. You know, we have the water tank back in place. He runs water through the heads. We moved the battery inside with the disconnect, just kind of play around with a little weight since we put 2 turbos in the front now. Again, the hard lines with the fire suppression system. You can see them up along the firewall. And the wiring's not finished. We moved a whole bunch of stuff, so his wiring guy is gonna have to just go in there and do some things. I do not wire. I can, but I won't. I also put that flat piece of carbon on top here, and that's just kind of to set your gloves on. And then I also have this extension on the tunnel that's made of steel. You know, that's just in case something comes apart. You can kind of get a better idea of the top double frame rail, how it comes, you know, it'll come out of the valve cover here, through this, and then it connects with a tube up front. It'll run the double frame rail, have a connection in the back, to the burn down tank, and hopefully only vapor comes out of it. Well, I think we're gonna end it there. It's ready to go home. It's ready to, needs a little bit of work yet. Plumbing, wiring, that's kind of it. Hopefully you see this thing at Yellow Bullet, running limited drag radial, like I said in the first episode. It's come a long way, significantly lighter. But the next car to come in here is also a red car. It's the one I drive. I guess stay tuned for the next series if you want to see that. Thanks for watching.